if you guys have been watching the JCMI Jamesway webinars, about a year and a half ago, I did a presentation on the data-driven hatchery. So I've got a little bit from that presentation incorporated into this, like a little bit of a review, and then we'll get into some future aspects of data management, data collection, that type of deal for the hatchery. So what we're going to do today is we're going to review the importance of data in the hatchery, and then which is going to be the part that I'm going to take care of, and then Craig will then discuss what JCMI is working on to help hatcheries with their data collection and management needs. And why is this not working? There we go. So what is the role of the hatchery? The hatchery plays a key role in the flow of relevant information upstream to the breeder department with such things as fertility. Hatchery is usually the place where a lot of the fertility is done. Fertility checks are done for a particular breeder flock. They also usually do egg pack inspections to make sure that, we're getting good, clean hatching eggs coming into the hatchery. We don't have a lot of dirty eggs. We don't have a lot of blood on the eggs. We don't have a lot of cracks upside down. So those are important information for the hatchery to relay to the breeder department. Another important aspect is early embryonic mortality. For the folks that do break out, I know there's hatcheries that don't, but early embryonic mortality, if we're not measuring that, not quantifying that, we could, and we're just using in novo vaccination to get us that number, which is not necessarily an infertility or fertility number, but it also includes early embryonic mortality. If we're not separating that, segregating that, we can often be misled and think that we have a breeder flock that has poor fertility than it actually does. So there's a lot of information that is relayed from breeder to hatchery and from hatchery to breeder. And then we're doing the same thing downstream to the grow out department. For example, hatcheries, if you've got some chicks that are on the green side, it's always advisable to let the folks in the grow out area know that. Or if we have chicks from young breeder source flocks or chicks from old breeder source flocks, again, it's really nice to know that. And then the grow out department should relay information on 3 and 7 day livability to the hatchery. So the hatchery is kind of a hub in live production, on a central hub where information is coming in and out of. So it is key that the information that's gathered in the hatchery is good information. So in today's hatchery, we collect a large amount of data. And what are you all doing with it? Are you utilizing this data to make good management decisions? Or are you just collecting data to be compliant with your company's requirements? And despite all the automation that we have within these hatcheries nowadays, many hatcheries are still keeping paper records and charts all on paper. And then they'll either put this stuff in a 3-ring binder or in a file drawer somewhere. If they do utilize the information, they're then having to have somebody actually input the data into some sort of a practical database, which again takes more time, takes more labor. And then there's also a bigger opportunity for transcription errors, those types of things. So the purpose of data in the hatchery there's many purposes. One, it's to assist in management decisions, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal. Depending on the season, depending on the month, there may be some changes based on what's going on in a hatchery. Also, we're collecting data to monitor chick and egg flows throughout the hatchery. We collect data to monitor our compliance program, the ABCs, animal welfare, biosecurity, compliance, safety. That's important. Those are big buzzwords nowadays in the hatchery world. We use data to monitor our SOPs, programs, and policies to make sure whatever programs are being done according to whatever your policy or SOP requires. Another thing that I like to use data for is to help with troubleshooting issues. Again, this is where putting it into some sort of a database really helps. When it's on a piece of paper, it makes it a little more difficult to utilize data for troubleshooting issues. To know what's normal, again, having a database where you can see trends on if your moisture loss is getting less in the summer months or getting more in the winter months. What is your moisture loss? And for me, that's a pretty hot topic. There's a lot of hatcheries that don't collect moisture loss. They don't know what their moisture loss is. It's hard to manage something that you don't know. And then hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, that this data does not end up, in a 3-ring binder up on a shelf or in a file cabinet somewhere. This data that you're collecting ought to be used and ought to be used to make good management decisions. So hatcheries, as I mentioned, collect a large amount of data to monitor, to evaluate their equipment, their operations within the hatchery. And we need to make sure that this data is being properly collected. This data is a valuable resource for hatchery management to evaluate if there's any problems or if we need any areas of improvement. Good data is worth a lot, and we need to inspect what we expect. Poor data, in my opinion, is worthless. You can definitely go down the wrong path in troubleshooting, or you can make bad decisions. And if it was me, I'd rather have, if you've got, nowadays with issues with keeping staff or a lack of staff, and, we've got all this data to collect, I'd rather have a little bit of good data than a whole lot of bad data. And when I talk about bad data, I'm talking about data that's improperly taken, data that's taken in a hurry, data that's just pencil whipped, data that, for example, if you've got data coming from your incubators and hatchers, but our machines are out of calibration, that's bad data because the machines don't know they're out of calibration. So you're getting bad data because we're not properly calibrating machines. And if you heard, or seen me on past webinars, calibration's one of my hot topics personally, because I find that being an issue in a lot of hatcheries that I go to. So the next few slides, we're going to talk about some of the data that is collected, some of the data that is needed. So, we've got, flock number for the particular breeder flock, the farm name or number, house number, flock age is very important, because some hatcheries may put, older breeder flocks in certain machines, younger breeder flocks in different machines, or running different profiles, those types of things. Different breeds, sometimes different breeds require different profiles. We want our lay date, set date, hatch date. All those are needed when you're in a hatchery. Obviously, we need to know the number of eggs set. And then we've got, like I mentioned just a little bit ago, our incubator and hatcher data, making sure that we have good calibrations, that we're getting our temperature, humidity, and if your machines have CO2 data in both a numeric and a graphical form. And there's a lot of computer programs out there. You know, with Jamesway, we have Hatchcom. Chickmaster has the Maestro systems that will do that. Then we've got our ABCs, where we've got our animal welfare, biosecurity, compliance, safety. There's a lot of data that's collected there. If hatcheries are doing any egg sanitation, such as, you know, if they're spraying eggs or dipping eggs, then, you know, we need to make sure that our chemical concentrations are correct, water temperatures are correct, those types of things. Fan RPMs, also important in some hatcheries with different types of incubators. Moisture loss. We talked about moisture loss. Again, a lot of hatcheries are not collecting that. And to me, that's one of the key metrics that we ought to be collecting, because, you know, every hatchery I go to, one of the first questions is what is your moisture loss? Because I need to know that, so I can help properly troubleshoot what's going on within that hatchery. Most hatcheries do a really good job of collecting hatchability data, hatch of fertile data. Residue breakout. We do have hatcheries that do a really good job. We have hatcheries that do adequate job, and then we have hatcheries that don't do a very good job with residue breakout, or don't do residue breakout hardly at all. And again, another key metric is if we're trying to troubleshoot hatchery issues, you know, incubation issues, hatchery issues, we really need this hatch. We need hatch residue breakout. I like to do candle breakout. Again, we talked about a few slides back about the fertility side of things. If we're just using a novel vaccination to get our fertility number, which is really not true fertility, because we have a lot of early embryonic mortality in there. I like to do a candle breakout and see what my fertility really is, and know what my early embryonic mortality is, because if we have an early embryonic mortality issue and it's not a fertility issue, those are two different problems with two different solutions. So again, we need to collect the data so that we can help troubleshoot what's going on, and we need the right data to be able to do that. Hatchery hygiene, 3 and 7 day livability. Like I mentioned earlier, from the farm, we need to know that information to see how things are going. Multi-stage, there's some items that we like to collect in the Jamesway multi-stage machine. Rooms and plenum pressures, temperatures and pressures and humidities. Yes, it doesn't matter what incubator you're using or hatchery you're using. Your rooms, your plenums, your temperatures, your pressures, and your humidities need to be correct according to the manufacturer's specs of that machine. If not, we're going to have issues, or you're going to have issues with that equipment not operating the way it ought to be operating. So there's you know, just a few more things there. Again, here's some more alarm logs. You know, are you recording an alarm log? I always used to record an alarm log, meaning any machine that was alarming, I would have record of that, because this way I'd know if I had a particular issue with an incubator or a hatcher alarming for whatever reason, whether it's turning, whether it's fan fail or whatever. Is there an issue with a particular machine? Am I seeing more alarms on a particular machine or not? Some of the computer softwares like Hatchcom, Maestro will collect that data, and you could run those reports off. But if you don't have equipment like that, if you're in multi-stage or some other equipment that doesn't have that capability, yes, you'd want to do something along those lines. My pet, the calibration log, love to have that. Again, you know, there's some software programs out there that do that. Again, it's good to have the log, but we need to make sure that we are calibrating correctly. Generator run logs, a lot of hatcheries have that. Again, incubator rooms and pressures. So this is just a small portion of the data that's collected in a hatchery. And you can see, you know, that picture I had, you know, a few slides ago, this mountain of paperwork. there literally is a mountain of paperwork in these hatcheries. So, and a lot of data is being collected. And again, the more we can put electronically, the better, instead of having all this paper floating about, which is what I typically see in these hatcheries. I see mounds of paperwork sitting on desks. That is really hard to decipher, especially when you're limited in time to go through. So we utilize data for compliance, animal welfare, biosecurity, safety. We're utilizing data to make management decisions. Automated data, so computer software for our incubators, our hatchers, our in novo vaccination equipment. Those are all computer operated, and they automatically have data collection capabilities. Room temps, humidities, and pressures, whether we're using a Maestro system, a HatchCom system, we'll do that as well. So types of data collection, we've got the tried and true, old-fashioned, 50s, 60s, 70s technology of putting it on paper, which is certainly not ideal. We've got data that is collected and or stored electronically, either through electronic barcode readers, data collection tablets, and that affords us ease of use, ease of analysis. We can put this data into Excel spreadsheets. We can print off some pretty graphs. We can get into more sophisticated software programs. There's a lot of things we can do with the data automatically once it's in an electronic format that you cannot do on a paper format. And then we've got, the automated collection systems with incubators, hatchers, our, guardian controls that collect our rooms, our humidities in our rooms, our temperatures in our rooms, our pressures in our rooms, our pressures in our plenums, all can be collected automatically, which again, the more we can automate in our data collection, the less somebody has to go out and write that down on a piece of paper or whatever, and then somebody then has to transcribe it into an electrical format. So the more we can do automatically, again, the better we are. And then how often are we monitoring or inspecting how that data is being collected? How often are you going out there and monitoring somebody taking crossbars, or monitoring somebody doing calibrations, or monitoring whatever data you're collecting? How often is that being monitored? I always, my terminology that I like to do is inspect what you expect. So, I always like to make sure that I am inspecting what I expect, and I like to make sure that I'm checking on these things periodically so that I know, what's going on. And then we're collecting data, as I mentioned earlier, to help optimize hatchery. Optimizing hatchery performance entails a good understanding of the data being collected and how it's being collected, and good data analysis. So like I mentioned just before, how often are we monitoring this, and do we know how that data is being collected? Because a lot of times I go to a hatchery and, I physically like to see exactly how all this stuff is being collected. And more times than not, I'm finding issues in how that data is being collected, resulting in, inadequate data, in my opinion, that they're getting, that these hatchery managers are making decisions on. So we need to make sure we inspect what we expect. And then many hatcheries are still collecting data and storing it in a paper format. And again, this limits your ability to analyze that data. Electronically stored data is much more valuable It can be turned into graphs, exported into other files, which improves our efficiency of the data analysis. So we need to talk about data validation. And that's one thing that I've always done when I take a look at data. Before I start to analyze that data, I always go through it and try to validate that data. And what I mean by validating the data is I like to go through that data to make sure it makes sense to me. Does that data make sense? Do I have over 100% hatchability? Can't be. You know, if you have over 100% hatch on a flock on a given day, somebody needs to say impossible. We've got, you know, some flocks that got mixed up here. But a lot of times when I'm looking at data, when I go on site and I'm looking at data, I can't tell you how many times I see data that just doesn't make sense to me. I've got, you know, over 100% hatchability on this flock. And so you need to at least do a quick overview to make sure this data is making sense to you. You need to go through the data and remove any obvious outliers, something that is like, no, this cannot be. And then I personally like to graph the data. You can, I mean, if you've got an electronic format, you can quickly, you know, run a graph of the data. And for me, you know, visualization it works for me. So I can graph data, and if something you know, I can see quickly if there's any obvious data errors or data outliers. It just makes my troubleshooting a lot quicker when I'm trying to validate this data. So again, before we just accept the data and send it off to your boss or send it to corporate, we need to make sure that it makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't look very good if we're sending out data that is incorrect. So data, when we have data, we gain knowledge through that data. That data is painting a picture for us. It's telling us something of what's going on within that hatchery, within that breeder flock, within that grow flock. Data is giving us a picture of what's going on in that facility, in that flock. And then from there, we can take the appropriate action. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I'd like to add one more thing. If we're measuring it, we need to make sure we're measuring it correctly and accurately. And that hence goes back to the whole calibration thing. So what software does a hatchery need? Hatching eggs are just part of a modern day hatchery operation. Managing schedules, labor, shipments, maintenance, and so much more. The stuff we just talked about, those 3 slides of data, there's a lot of data that's being collected out there. Means that a hatchery needs, a manager needs tools to help keep everything aligned. This data is helping these managers as a tool to keep everything going, to keep everything the way it's supposed to be. Wouldn't it be nice to have one platform to gather and collect and analyze all of the data from the hatchery, all of the data from our incubation equipment, whether it's our incubators, our hatchers, all of our maintenance items? What about data coming from our in novo vaccination going into this one platform? What about our HVAC equipment, again, going into this one platform? Data from our breeder farms, data from grow out, like 3 and 7 day livability, going again into this one collection platform, just to name a few items. Wouldn't that be nice? And have it automatically collected and stored electronically. So what is the future of hatchery management going to look like? So with that, I'd like to have Craig discuss this a little bit further. So I'd like to thank you. And I'll let Craig take over.
Thank you very much, Henry. Chris,
thank you, Henry. Go ahead, Craig. Again, we'll entertain questions at the conclusion of Craig's topic. So go ahead, Craig.
Thank you very much, Jen. Does everybody hear me okay?
We can't respond. You're good.
Perfect. Just give me a moment to share my desktop, and then this presentation will hopefully make far more sense for everybody. There we go. And we're running. So thank you very much for that, Henry. There's a great overview of the sheer amount of data that we get in hatcheries these days, and it is really easy to forget just the sheer quantity that we've got to deal with in the hatcheries. And it's something that a lot of people really take underestimate in the hatchery and forget just the sheer quantity of it. So what I'd like to do now is just to spend a couple of minutes just to run through what the possibilities are once you get your hands on that data. Now, I'm going to be using one of our own systems, a project called 360 as an example, but you can do this with multitudes of different systems within the industry. So there are other options available to you. So as Henry said, the journey really starts with collecting that data, adding knowledge to it or getting knowledge back from that data, and then carrying out actions in your facility to improve the operation that you guys are doing day to day. Now, the 360 platform that we've got, or any platform that you're going to use for this, allows you to do that data collection, the knowledge, and then carrying out actions from that in an easy, consistent, and reliable way. Obviously, at the moment, what you often find in facilities is a multitude of different systems, different spreadsheets spread around that don't have a unified voice within the facility, and all that data spread around. So the 360 platform is there to try and streamline those hatchery operations for you. So if you're not currently carrying out some of those basic checks within your facility, it makes it easier to do, either from a labor utilization viewpoint, from an experience or skill viewpoint, and to make that data collection as easy as possible and to present that data in a way that's both analyzed, so you can gain insights from it, and easy to understand for everybody at different levels of your organization. So as we go through the journey of an egg through one of the facilities, obviously, as Henry's already outlined, there's a multitude of different information that you can collect, all the way from your breeder information, your transport checks, your arrival and duration within egg storage and your egg pack age. And then you've got your core incubation data, which is where the chicks spend a significant portion of their life prior to going off to the farms. And then you get your day-old chicks and the inherent qualities and feed conversion and farm performance that's integrated into the hatchery. And as a result of all of this, you end up with KPIs and spreadsheets and manually filled in check sheets that half of the time, from our experience on sites, don't actually get action to do anything. So they don't realistically make any changes until somebody sits down and does it. Now, on a rare occasion, you will find a hatchery where they've got the experience in place and they've got the spare labor in place where they're able to actually do something with that data. And you'll often find a wall like this on the hatchery, usually in the hatchery manager's office. But as I said, this assumes that you've got the skills, the expertise, and the time to pull all of this data together. Now, this usually revolves around that core incubation data, as I mentioned earlier. So whether you're on Jamesway and you've got the Hatchcom 4 system or the Chickmaster with the Maestro system, that really makes the foundation of any system within your facility. And when something does go wrong with any of that data and you start spotting those outliers or the dip in hatchability or the dip in feed conversion rate, it's usually the first place you look is that incubation data in order to find out what's gone wrong with that. So what we're aiming to do in JCMI is to use that incubation data as a core, but expand the viewpoint of the collection of that data to encompass the entire journey of that egg. So the first thing that we're going to do is part of 360 is we're going to supply a server which is going to allow one-way communications of that core incubation data up into the cloud. Now, because it's one-way communications, this is in no way replacing the existing SCADA packages. So your Hatchcom and the Maestro are going to continue to be the point of control for your facility, and that's not going to change. This is purely here as a system to supplement or to work alongside your existing system. Now, because that core incubation data signifies a significant investment in terms of time and effort into the embryo, we're using that as the foundation for this system going forward. So we're going to take that incubation data and we're using the Azure cloud platform, which then enables us to combine that data with data from multiple different sources. Now, the advantage of this is multifaceted. So there's several different advantages to this, and I'd love to run through a few of those with you guys now. So here we can see some screenshots of the 360 platform, and this is a current live product that JCMI has available to our customers now. So straight away, you can see a hatchery layout here, so your staff are easily trained on the system and navigating around it. The next screen here, because we've got that live incubation data being sent into the cloud, you can remotely monitor your machines from anywhere in the world and see exactly what their status of them is. So whether you've got a high humidity alarm or a door open alarm, you can log into that machine and see exactly what status of that machine is and triage that fault as to whether or not you need to hightail it to the hatchery quickly, or you can take a little bit more of a gander and finish your lunch or finish your other tasks that you're on. This is a slightly different view of that exact same data. And this view, what we've seen from customers, is a great way to spot outliers on your incubators. So if you're finding an incubator that's behaving a little bit differently, this overview of how your incubators are configured will tell you straight away if the damper, for instance, is configured in a manual mode instead of a humidity mode in terms of control. Equally, you can see from here your stage profile breakdown on the machine. Now, all of this, the ability to remotely monitor your machines is frankly window dressing. When it comes to data analytics and the power of that, the power comes from what you're then able to do with that data above and beyond what you're currently doing within the facility. So on this screen here, this would be a customized asset management system for your individual incubators. Now, asset management tools are 10 a penny. You can buy them absolutely anywhere off the shelf for a reasonably significant cost, but you can get them absolutely anywhere in order to maintain your assets. So to look after your incubators and track the service and maintenance that you're doing on those machines. The advantage of having one common platform for your system is because we've got that live incubation data for every single component on every single incubator, we're able to give you a real-time running hour for that individual component, all the way down to the number of individual activations. That allows us to build up a comprehensive view of the maintenance needs of your machines. So here we can see a motive taken from an ECU on a platinum incubator. And this one's been running for about 2,500 hours out of the projected lifespan of 50,000 hours. So what we've gone ahead and done on here is first of all provide you as the customer with a picture and a part number of that part so you can order that part really easily. And third of all, we've got a pre-filled in or a forecasted maintenance task for that individual component way out in 2027, so in 5 years' time. Now, if something happens on that incubator prior to that date, what you're able to do is to come into this system and either adjust the component or replace it, and then notify the system that first of all, you've had to do that and use that spare part, but also that an event has taken part on that incubator, and we can then tie that back to the incubation that's going on inside that machine as well. And that's one of the key benefits to having all of your information on one common platform. If we carry on a little bit further down the road, what we've also got preloaded into the system is pre-made checklists for all of your incubators. Now, this is something both Chickmaster and Jamesway brands highly recommend for customers. Is an easy way to improve their reliability and reduce the amount of unscheduled downtime on their incubators, is to carry out preset checklists on the incubators. So this is simply going through and mechanically checking each of the functions on the machine to make sure that they're going to work and that you can have a reliable and consistent incubation cycle through that machine. So what this functionality allows you to do is to go through each component and either check to say, yes, this is working as intended, and we've got a high degree of reliability out of this machine, or you can monitor to say, or you can mention to say that you've adjusted any individual components on the machine, or indeed, if needed, and you've found a problem, but it's not necessarily a high priority, you can mark a task to be carried out in the future once the current incubation cycle is being carried out. And again, all of this information is stored in the service history of the incubator, so that should you have a problem with incubation, you can go back and see all of the events that have occurred to that machine during and prior to the incubation cycle. Now, because we've got all of this information at our fingertips, if you think back to Henry's presentation, one of the key factors of collecting data is actually doing something with it and presenting that information to the people within the facility. So that's exactly what 360 allows you to do, is to present that information in a readable way so that you can see insights at the tip of your fingertips as easily as possible. So here on the left-hand side, you can simply see the incubation time for each of your machines, and this is going to allow you to target your maintenance in the facility as and when you need to. As we move across to the right-hand side, you can see a quick breakdown of the egg pack that's currently in the facility. And way over on the right-hand side, again, you've got the top 10 incubated, top 10 high maintenance machines, but in this case, it's broken down by the number of parts that have been consumed by those incubators. And then that same metric is repeated in the bottom left-hand corner, just down here, where we've got the man hours or the labor requirement in order to carry out those parts. And again, it's all down to utilizing that data that we've got available to make intelligent decisions in the hatchery. As we carry on through 360, another feature that we've included in this system is the ability to track the path of the eggs through that journey. Now, again, this is something that the majority of our customers are interested in to one degree or another. Some customers are really interested in being able to track the farms and manage the farms and the egg packs as they come into the facility. And the majority of our customers are more interested in being able to roll in egg quality information into this as well. So this is the idea of tying in hatchability, hatcher fertile, vaccination status, sexing information into that egg pack information, so that you're then able to draw comparisons not only against the breeder standard, but also against your hatchery's own history, so you can spot historical trends and spot those outliers that Henry highlighted as being absolutely crucial to maintaining a great, consistent incubation standard. So once a customer's got their egg packs in the facility, their farms set up in the facility, you can then also set up your egg pack. So this is managing the egg pack as it comes through your facility, and the system is then automatically going to work out the flock age of the eggs that are coming in, the flock age of the hens that are providing those eggs, but then also monitoring the egg age as they're in your facility as well. And as they get assigned to various orders through your facility, they're going to be automatically ticked off, and we can then able to track those eggs as they go through individual machines, whether they're Avidas, Classics, Platinums, or conventional Jamesways. So you see a full life cycle of those eggs. And again, an egg logistics module is something that you're able to get off the shelf from multiple different companies in the industry. The big advantage of having all of this information on one platform, however, is combining data from all of those sources with that core incubation data. And some of the things that allows you to do is to see exactly where your eggs have been through the facility, exactly how they've performed, see that transition through to the hatches. So again, if you have a problem with one specific hatcher, you can track that down really readily and really easily. Being able to see the events that have occurred during that incubation cycle for those machines, whether it's alarms on your setters, which we can see at the top, the alarms on your hatches, which we can see in the middle, or maintenance tasks that have been carried out on those incubators, which we can see at the bottom. And again, all of these systems are available off the shelf for you. However, the 360 platform, or any system that has all of that information on one common platform, allows you to put all of this into one set of analytics and to draw insights between those data as well. So here we can see a combined graph. This is simply a graph of the duration of the incubation in the setter combined with the duration of incubation in a hatcher. Traditionally, this is a manual task to go through and track down not only where those eggs have been in your facility, but then to pull up the graphs and sit down again, either in Excel or print them out and hold them up to a window to find out those comparisons and to see what's gone wrong between two different incubation cycles. The power of having a one common platform for all of this is that it does it automatically for you. So at the end of each hatch cycle, you've got a PDF ready for you that shows you all of the data that I've just shown you in this example. The very last screen I'm going to show you on here is this comparison of your historical flock performance. So this graph is going to spit out your hatchability for your current flock and then compare that to a similar aged flock or a similar, the same flock of a similar age that's previously gone through your facility. So that's not only your fertility, but your hatcher fertile as well. And again, this goes back to that idea of having great information and great data in your facility, but actually being able to act on it. So as with most modern systems, whenever you're working in a hatchery, you're going to want a system that's mobile compatible so that you're not tied to using on a desktop PC. And I like to akin it to your maintenance or your egg store staff walking around the facility and manually entering all of this data or being able to access the data wherever they are in the facility without having to walk several hundred yards back to the office, trying to remember what it is they're off to check, and then being able to check that system. When it comes to our specific machines, the 360 platform is fully compatible with all of our incubators. I'm not going to linger on this too long because this isn't meant to be a sales presentation, it's more of an educational one. But if you've got JCMI machines that are installed on or after 2012, then the 360 platform is fully compatible for you. And it's a simple installation with adding an additional server to work alongside your existing HatchCom or Maestro system. And it's going to be an evolving system that we're going to be continuously adding to over the next 2-3 decades. So this is truly a system that's going to outlive your incubators, and it's going to allow you to consistently make great incubation decisions off into the future. And it's absolutely a platform that we're going to be using machine learning for so that we can gather insights on information in very large quantities. So just to roll us back to Henry's presentation from earlier, a great system for your hatchery has to incorporate easy access of data in your facility. If your staff are already maxed out, they're 100% utilized in terms of labor, and you want to collect additional data from them during their day-to-day operation, you've got to make that as simple as possible. When it comes to the knowledge on that data, either adding knowledge to it or taking knowledge away, you've got to make it, again, as easy and as consistent and as reliable as possible, and the same for carrying out actions on those. So it really comes back to those key tenets or those key points to make any system as easy, consistent, and reliable as possible. Thank you very much for your time today, gents. And if anybody's got any questions, Henry, Keith, and I are all ears.
Thank you, Craig. Unshare your screen and we'll have a little discussion here. And Henry, you can turn on your video as well so we can see Henry and Craig's faces here. So again, thank you very much. A lot of good information. I've been really excited to see some of this come to fruition. Like
hey Keith,
really,
or
yeah.
somebody start my video? It won't let me.
Oh, okay. All right.
There we are.
You're on now?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry. I don't know. Anyway, a lot of good information on this, and I've been really excited to see this develop and some of the opportunities that it's going to give hatchery managers. And one of the first things I want to know is Craig's been on the developmental side of this and been for his career with Chickmaster and then JCMI for a number of years on the service working with hatchery side. Well, Henry, you've spent 31 years managing hatchery and working with other hatchery managers. If you were a hatchery manager back in the day and had something like this, what do you think it would have done to your life?
Oh my gosh. You know, having the ability, like I mentioned in the presentation, to take data from, instead of being on a sheet of paper and then having somebody having to input that data, and hopefully it's inputted correctly. And then, the more we can automate the data, especially nowadays, the better, the more reliable, the quicker we're going to have that data available to us so that we can make decisions even quicker, I think is going to be extremely exciting. I'm extremely excited about the way things are going with 360 and with the other software programs that are out there that Craig had mentioned. I mean, 360 is not the only thing out there, but there's a lot going on in this computerization and the electronic age that should make life a little bit easier for hatchery managers. They still have a whole lot of other stuff that they got to worry about, but if this is one thing that we can pull off of their daily task and have it automatically analyze and spit out information, it would certainly be a benefit.
And I look at this as twofold. As one, given a hatchery manager information more readily available in an organized fashion.
That's
But
right.
two, I see it as reducing the potentially reducing the workload man hours when you start using the maintenance scheduling and all that stuff. It's a time saver and a efficiency, become more efficient.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're scheduling your machine downtimes instead of the machine telling you when it's going down on you.
Yeah.
And then you have to scramble. Most hatcheries are in this reactive maintenance mode. And to have a program that will, because we already talked about in a webinar about, maintenance and going from a reactive and going into a preventative. This is one way to get into that preventative maintenance mode a lot quicker and a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest skill barriers or experience barriers to doing preventative maintenance is knowing when to do it. So what is preventative maintenance, and knowing those timers for every solenoid, every motor, every belt in your facility.
Right.
One of the advantages of a system like 360 is that it gives you all of that information, and then it ties it directly into exactly what your incubators are doing. So hypothetically, if you've got a bank of 20 machines and 10 of them are working flat out 24 hours a day for 5 years straight, and then the other 10 are only working 50% of the time, those two groups of machines have got very different maintenance needs. And from my background in service, we absolutely see it on every site where people have got preferences of machines. And it's really difficult to do preventative maintenance. You don't have uniform use on your machines. So tying it back to that core incubation data, to me, is absolutely crucial for a good system.
One of the questions is, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but so where's the data stored? And does the customer opts for this program, do they need to provide their own server, or where is this actually stored, and how is it stored?
So the data itself is stored on the Azure cloud platform, which is a cloud computing platform from Microsoft. And it's one of the world leaders. It's up there with Amazon Web Services in terms of reliability, stability, and security. And that's where the data is going to be stored. Now, in order to access 360, there's two things required. First is an update to Hatchcom and Maestro, Hatchcom or Maestro rather, and that's a free upgrade. The current version of both of those has got all of the required software built into it. And then we're going to also supply, as part of the service, a small server, which is about the size of a really small suitcase. And that's what's going to translate and encrypt the data from Hatchcom and Maestro and send it up into the cloud for us. And that gives us the security break as well between the internet and your operational SCADA package on site. So even if the cloud system falls over and stops working, your hatchery operations are 100% secure. This isn't there to replace Maestro or Hatchcom. It's just there to complement and work alongside them. Now, once that data is in the cloud, it remains the property of the customer at all times. That's a really important point. That is your data. We're just there to help you analyze that and draw conclusions from it. That's all our service is doing.
Okay, thank you. So within this platform, are they able to get with Hatchcom Maestro, we have a call out system, say, hey, we've exceeded our minimum or maximum temperature, humidity, or anything. Is that part of this platform? Is that going to stay part of the Hatchcom or Maestro?
At the moment, that's part of Hatchcom and Maestro, and there's very, very long-standing systems in place on both of those. So whether you've got Jamesway or Chickmaster machines, the functionality is there to do that, whether it's a call out, a text messaging, or an email system. Longer term, absolutely, it's something that we'd like to take online as well. But it's not there in the functionality at the moment. At the moment, we focus very much on the egg tracking module and the maintenance, because most of our customers have highlighted that as being the priorities from any system like this.
And just an add-on to that, I know we've had a number of meetings on this, is that, you know, what was discussed today, there's going to be a lot more things added. Every little bit we'll be continually adding new opportunities and options in there. So one of those, can you talk a little bit about the spare parts and how that is going to work as far as unique for each machine? Is it going to tell you when there's a failure or when it's close to its usage? Or
so at the moment, it's purely reactive. So we're going to preload the system with what we project or what we forecast to be the replacement timetable for your parts are. And that's great for a couple of reasons. First, it allows you to see what labor utilization is coming up, so you can plan how many pairs of hands you need for any given day. And secondly, it allows you to plan the purchasing of those parts as well. So if you want to replace temperature probes, for instance, every 2 years, because you know from experience that that's roughly how long they last before your calibration values start getting a little bit scary. You can plan that 2 years in advance, and the system's not only going to identify which probe you need, but allow you to order them through our online store as well. Further down the line, I saw the question from David in the chat a moment ago. We're absolutely planning, and we are heading down the road of rolling into machine learning as well. Now, machine learning within cloud computing is a really powerful tool because it allows us to look at that real-time incubation data and draw conclusions from it that we may otherwise struggle to see. A prime example would be a 1 incubator out of 100 that's heating far more than we usually expect to see at that particular time of incubation. Now, you ask a guy whose background is service what that means, and I'm probably going to tell you it's likely you've got a leaky solenoid that's slowly trickling water through that machine, or your damper's not 100% closed. Spotting that there's a problem on that machine is the first step to solving the issue. And one of the great things about a platform like 360 is it gives you those insights before it impacts your hatch quality, which is traditionally how you spot problems on your incubator, is you wait for a hatch to come off and it's not quite where you want it to be, and the chicks are maybe a little bit too green.
With the software, is it I mean, somebody asked if that's additional software, or is it simply an upgrade with a Maestro or Hatchcom?
It's an upgrade to the Maestro system, and then you just need a piece of a new server to go alongside it as well. And that server is something that we would in effect rent to you as part of the service. So if there's any problems with that server during the life of it, we'd replace that. And we keep ownership of that server for the simple fact that it allows us then to continuously update the security protocols on that server, so you can be absolutely sure that it is secure as possible. And it's kept constantly up to date so that your data is safe.
You talked about the egg tracking and everything, and I know you and I have discussed this as far as managing, say we have heat treated spideys. So we've done spideys on groups of eggs and not on other eggs. And how is that going to be able, when we get to that point, manage those eggs? Will it let us know these have been treated, these have not?
Yeah, so that's already in the system. So the egg tracking module isn't actually going to be available. We're not launching it until August this year. The reason is we're working through some optimizations for the multi-stage customers that we've got as well. So it's going to be absolutely available for single stage and multi-stage. And one of the things that you can do in that egg store is, first of all, you can quarantine eggs. So if you have an AI outbreak, you can highlight that farm, and the system's going to notify you of exactly where all of those eggs are within your facility that have originated from that farm. But it also allows you to donate when eggs have had a spides treatment and exactly what that treatment entails. So going back to that idea of having a hatch report at the end of your incubation cycle, that's going to include all of that data as well. So you're going to have not only a hatcher temperature, humidity, and damper graphs, your setter graphs, your spideys graph, and then future states. So maybe towards the end of next year, we're also planning on rolling in the HVAC data as well. So you can roll in your actual egg store temperature, your transfer room, and your chick store temperatures as well. So you've got the complete view of your hatchery, everywhere that the egg's been, in one simple place. So you've got access to that information without having to trawl through multiple different systems to get to it.
So if somebody has their own server, do they need to still get a server from JCMI?
Absolutely, yes. So that server's got some proprietary information on it from our viewpoint that does an amount of analytics and optimization of the data, taking out those extreme events and those erroneous values prior to sending it up to the cloud. So that's the interface, and that's absolutely key to the system. So it's unfortunately not just an off-the-shelf server. It does have a bit of software in the background as well.
Okay. A couple of questions in Spanish there. Mauricio, are you still with us? Can you ask Craig? Can you ask Craig a couple of questions in Spanish, please?
Sure. Craig, someone here asked about we can connect our chillers ventilation system to this program.
At the moment, no, unfortunately, but it's absolutely on our roadmap, and it's something that we're hoping to achieve by the end of next year. And the problem we have with that is there are a multitude of different chiller systems out there and HVAC systems out there. So it gets really complicated really quick, but which is why we're taking our time on it, so that when we do implement it, it's done in a sensible way that gives our customers the best possible information.
Okay, thank you. There another one there, Mauricio? I should introduce Mauricio. He's our sales representative in Latin America, and he's here to assist with the Spanish part.
Thanks, kid. Great. Another question is, how old have to be the machine to adapt to this system? I mean, what is can be adapted to pretty old machines?
So 10 years is the limit that we have. Unfortunately, any machines older than about 10 years, the controls simply don't have the resolution on the data to get good analytics from them. So we're unable to support them at this time. We are constantly looking to improve the system so that we can support older machines. But at the moment, it's 2012 or newer we can support fully. And certainly our newer controls that are coming through now have got an enhanced level of functionality as well. Yeah, unfortunately it's 10 years or newer. We'll support anything past that is currently not on the table.
Thank you so much, Rick.
So down the line, we don't really know for certain how old we may be able to go with this, or is it a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility, but at this moment we can't commit to that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you everybody for the questions and for the presentations from Henry and Craig, certainly, and for Mauricio assisting us with the translation. Also several people in the background, Chris Crow and Sydney and our others that always assist with these webinars. Always make it as good as we can, and hope you all enjoy it. Thank you again, and I hope you look to us for some other webinars. Again, remember, we have 70 some odd webinars on our website, the recorded versions and the PDFs as well, of many of those that you can go back and look. There's a huge library of data and information that you can access to look at some of our past discussions we've had. A lot of information there. I encourage you to go look there if you have questions and see what else you can learn. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Craig. And thank you all for attending. And we hope to see you here again at a webinar in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.